Hello, dear audience. I'm grateful to welcome you to our webinar on the Wadden Sea Tourism Radar today. And we are welcoming you here in our little studio. And it's first Anja Cieszynski from the WWF Wadden Sea office.
On my side, we have Wolfgang Günther from the research agency in Kiel, NIT, which translates to New Insights in Tourism. And remote from the island of Ameland, we have Sean de Haan, coordinator Wadden Sea World Heritage in the Netherlands and policy advisor to the Council of Ameland.
Why Sean is with us, I should explain with some short, brief words. Sean is our contact person on Ameland when we run the pilot application of our Wadden Sea Tourism Radar in the Netherlands. And so he has some experience with the radar, and in the second part of our webinar, we will talk to him and ask him how this application was and which recommendation he might have for us for the application and other sites. But first, we would like to introduce the tool itself, the Wadden Sea Tourism Radar, and how it was developed and why it was developed. And in particular, this why is the part for Anja. For this, we start a presentation and share our screen.
Oh, welcome also. From my side, WWF engages in the conservation of the Wadden Sea and also in the sustainable development of the adjacent region. And tourism is a very important partner in the sustainable development of the region. And we do have a joint strategy for sustainable tourism development in the Wadden Sea region that has been jointly developed by various stakeholders when the Wadden Sea became a World Heritage Site. And this strategy describes the strategic framework for tourism development in the entire World Heritage destination. It describes how the World Heritage can benefit from tourism and vice versa. And the strategy aims to develop tourism in a way that the outstanding universal value of the Wadden Sea, what makes the Wadden Sea a World Heritage Site, will be maintained and used in a sustainable way. Now we're talking about sustainable tourism development and being a conservationist, but also if you've seen over the last, especially the last 2 or 3 years, also voices from local communities, from the broader region, there rises the question, well, how far can even a sustainable development in tourism go? Are there limits? Might there be limits? Can there be too much? And where and when might those limits for people, planet and profit be reached? And being a conservationist, of course, the limits for nature is in our prime focus, but we also have seen the planet, the wider planet dimension, the profit and the people. And yeah, so you might have come across this in your various regions. There can be too much of tourism. The PROWAD Link project, a wider North Sea region Interreg project with 14 partners from Germany, Denmark, the Netherlands, Norway and Great Britain, tackled the question, how can nature conservation, and now I can't see the slide because the windows over the kitchen. Sorry for that. Great, thank you very much. Nature conservation and business, of course, benefit from the potential of the natural heritage brand. And this project provided for us as WWF, being a partner in this project, an ideal framework to focus on the question, again, tourism can benefit from nature, nature can benefit from tourism, but how far can all of that go? So how can tourism be developed in a way that we really develop it within within limits that are beneficial for all of us. So we have, together with Wolfgang Günther from the NIT, developed an instrument, which is the Wadden Sea Tourism Radar, that provides a framework, a guideline, a set of indicators and a methodology for tourism destinations to discuss the individual limits for the destination. So we do not provide the answers. We do not say, you can develop this to this and this limit, but it's something that has to be developed in the regions. That can be a very individual answer. And this is why we developed this instrument to help destinations find their own answers to their own questions. And how this instrument works, that is going to be explained by Wolfgang.
Yeah, thank you, Anja. Before I go in details concerning how it's structured and which tools you have in this radar, I would like to tell you a little bit about the development process. We, as Anja told you, this is part of the PROWAD Link project, and the question was, so first we made a kind of overview about existing tools which are suitable to identify limits of acceptable change. And when we had the whole picture, we sit together and said, choose one of these methodologies to be applied in the Wadden Sea area. This was the LIC methodology, so limits of acceptable. The LIC methodology was already applied in other areas, for example, in Finland, in the Borkum World Heritage site. And now the question was whether this is also applicable in the Wadden Sea region. And the procedure, what is in this LIC process, is that first you have to identify the relevant issues on the site, then you have to select certain indicators which are suitable to reflect these issues and their development. And then you make a status quo analysis to have a bottom line. And on having a look at this bottom line, you perfectly together with the stakeholders on site define the limits you would like to meet. And then you start monitoring along the indicators and evaluate in regular time frames. And when you recognize that the limits are exceeded, then of course you have to take measures to come back on the track again to keep under the limits. So that's the idea of this LIC in rough words. And so we started this process to identify the issues in the Wadden Sea region and then start to select the indicators. And this was not that easy, because on one hand we wanted to use existing data as much as possible, because of course it's quite a lot of efforts to collect data and or to really make research to get the data. So perfectly it should be data which are available already. On the other hand, we wanted to have indicators which really well reflect the issues we identify for the Wadden Sea region. So in this framework, we using existing sets of indicators, we developed a set of 50 indicators as a kind of menu where the sites should select the most suitable ones for their purpose. But when we had together, also Sion was with us, we had a look at this set of indicators. We had the same idea: this is too much efforts. No one will really use this methodology because it's far too much work to collect all these data. And so we came to the conclusion that we have to look for another alternative approach, which is really smaller and lighter and with less efforts. So we tried to find another way to catch this question we had said in the very beginning, and this is where the Wadden Sea Tourism Radar came in the picture. The first step, we get a step back and had a look at our main objective. This is to preserve permanently the outstanding universal value of the Wadden Sea World Heritage Site. So that's in the core is what we would like to do for humans on one side and for the nature, of course, as well. And so this leads us to the key question that we have to observe whether developments in tourism have a negative effect on this value of this outstanding universal value. And our approach to do so is to describe the desired situation on the site along selected criteria and ask for each criteria whether these criteria are impaired by the tourism. So that's more or less the main idea by the Wadden Sea Tourism Radar. And this, of course, differs a lot from the LAC approach because we use no indicators or only as a reference to describe why we came to a certain assessment. And this is more a quantitative assessment, not a qualitative assessment of the quantitative. And we do not carry out comprehensive surveys. We use only supporting documents if they are available already. So small efforts, but hopefully still good results. We started the development of or the identification of the criteria with the 3 UNESCO World Heritage criteria, which are behind the designation of the Wadden Sea as a World Heritage Site. So we take these criteria and translate it in statements for our Wadden Sea Tourism Radar. But as Anja in the beginning already told, the framework is the sustainability in whole, with all dimensions or 3 dimensions of sustainability, including social and economic issues. And so we added to these 3 basic criteria 9 criteria per dimension, describing the situation from this perspective, social, economic, and ecological perspective. And we used, doing this, we used the experiences and issues we identified in the very beginning of the project, where we deal with these 50 indicators. So the work was not lost, yeah. So in all, we have 3 basic criteria, 27 additional criteria, so 30 questions to be answered in this questionnaire, which is the core of the instrument. Yeah, having this first draft ready, we were curious whether this is something that is really practical, whether it's working in practice. And so we asked 3 sites to make a test application. And this was Borkum, Ameland, so that's why John is with us, and St. Peter-Ording in Schleswig-Holstein. And in each application, test application, we gathered some more experiences and optimized the radar, and the result, the final versions that will be presented to you today. Let's have a look at the structure of this questionnaire, what is to be filled. This is first started with the second column is the criterion itself. Always we have a short statement describing this criterion and an explanation what is meant with this criterion. Then in the second column, you have to assess. So you have to give a voting for whether this criterion is true, fully true, rather not true, or not at all true. And you give a note 4, 2, 3, 2, or 1 for the respective answer. The next step is to answer the questions whether this impairment of the criterion, if there is an impairment, is due to tourism, because this is what is interesting for us. And in case tourism is impairing, then of course you have to write down here in this column which kind of impairment impact you recognize. Then in the next column, we give some examples how such an impairment could look like, and then we have a next column where you can give an assessment to the degree of impairment. It can be high influence, low influence, or medium, and also you should give an assessment on the trend, whether this is decreasing, increasing, or keeping on the same level, more or less. So we have a good picture about this criterion, which is the situation, and if there are any supporting documents which can be taken as a proof for the judgment or for the assessment, then you can put it in the next column, and the last column is the one where you can put in some first ideas for measurements which are suitable to come back on the track when you have an impairment of the criteria. So that's the main structure. And now you might ask who should do the work, because this is indeed a very crucial question, and how this instrument should be introduced. And for this, we have in the guideline we present later, we have a step-by-step introduction, and the first point already addresses this crucial point, how you come to this assessment team. And the idea from us in the development is that you have a team of experts, which are experts on one hand on the situation on site, and which are experts in one dimension of the sustainability at the same time. So one expert on more or less on ecology, one on social affairs, and one on economy. So people, profit, planet are reflected. And so at least there should be 3 persons giving these 3 perspectives and doing the work of filling in this table and giving the assessment. We have good experience in taking people from, for example, these organizations. For the profit area, it could be hotel and restaurant associations or the DMO. For planet, it could be representatives from the national park, for example, or from nature conservation associations. And for the social issue, it could be youth, school, speaker, social services, or representatives from the church. It's also a possibility, for example, where you can look at to find the right persons in your destination. So when you have found a suitable group of people who on one hand have the expertise, they should be well treated by the municipality, by the destination as well, so that the people are satisfied that they are more or less doing the work. Then you can start the real work, the assessment, and we recommend to use external moderation for this workshop, which is they should do this work together, fill in this questionnaire together in a common session, and this session should be moderated. That's our experience by an external moderator, and so that every party can really come in with their own perspective. It's not, and the moderation is not influencing this process. Then you have the assessment, and depending on the results, you probably will have to develop proposals for actions and implement these actions, decide on these actions, and this is probably not be done by this assessment group itself, but by the community or by certain stakeholders which are responsible for these actions. But at the end, you can repeat the process of and using the radar and do a second assessment to evaluate whether these measurements really worked out. So that's the process, more or less. And this is not restricted to the Wadden Sea because most of the criteria are quite general. We have these 3 OUE criteria, of course, which are specific for the Wadden Sea region, but the other 27 indicators could be also applied in other destinations that are not connected to the Wadden Sea, more general character. So, yes, next question is what we gain with applying this radar. And from our experience and from our idea as well, the beauty of this methodology is that we have a cross-dimensional discourse between these persons who may have not met before in this group before. They have a cross-dimensional discourse, and they get at the end a compact overview about the overall situation, really integrating the 3 dimensions of sustainability, looking at all together and not on each separately. Then we get recognition and classification of undesirable developments on the site. You have a checklist with this criteria, catalog of criteria, where you go through and will find at the end where there are undesirable field developments. And at the last but not least, this instrument helps this group in the first instance, and others who are working with this afterwards or reading it, helps to have a conscious and structured discussion on a jointly desired future on the site concerning tourism. So that's what we get out of it, hopefully, or what we got out of it in the pilot destinations. And now we have some tools available for you to which assist you while running this instrument. First, we have I can show it here. First, we have a guideline where all what we tell in this webinar is written down in detail, where you can read what's the idea of the radar and how to use it. You will find the table as well. This is also available as a doc file so that you can also fill in. And as a special add-on, we have also a graphic tool developed where you can, which you can visualize the results of the assessment at the end. And of course, if you do the assessment regularly, every year or every 3 years, you can put these graphs next to each other and see which development you have on one spot. So that's what we can offer for you, and particularly this graphic tool we would like to introduce a little bit closer for you, and this is all again done by Anke.
Yes, thank you very much. So in the download section on the website, you'll find a zip folder that comprises the graphic tool and the Excel sheet where you can type in your individual results of the questionnaire. So all the numbers you mark, the ratings you've done in the Word file that you can also download from it. So it's very friendly to apply, so to say. And we also provide a step-by-step instruction how to use the graphic tool. It looks much more complicated than it actually is. So you download the zip folder, unzip it, open the PowerPoint, then this nice fancy visualization will appear. And if you follow along the step-by-step instruction, an Excel sheet will open from the PowerPoint. Then you can type in indicator by indicator your individual result. And while you do this, in the background, the PowerPoint graphic will adapt and the individual rays will develop along with the figures you type in. And in the end, you can then copy and paste the entire graphic that has been generated in the PowerPoint, and also here there's a step-by-step instruction how to do it, and then you can import the graphic in a new PowerPoint in a Word file for your own presentation, for your own visualization of your individual rating. And as Wolfgang said, if you're doing this more than once the workshop in a row in a series, you can compare the rates, and it's a nice thing to visualize what has been talked about and what has been rated.
Yeah, Anja, now I can close our presentation and come back to the audience and have a look at the questions you might have sent us. Oh, this is something we forgot to explain in the very beginning, actually. You have your audience, we have the possibility to ask questions. Not then we cannot see you, but you can write your question under F&A, and then these questions will appear on our screen, and we will try to answer it at our best. And so don't hesitate to write some questions in the F&A, then we can continue. But we have some questions from the last session. We did this work already, this webinar already in German language before, and now we had some questions in there, and I think it's also interesting for the audience to hear what had been asked there.
Oh, certainly, and the first question that arose in the morning session was, does it need an independent moderation? So do you need a facilitator not from within your circle to lead the group through this, through the guideline?
Yeah, we really recommend to do so, to have this independent moderation. As I explained already in my presentation, it's always difficult. For example, if the moderation is done by the DMO, then the DMO is kind of outside the process, because they are, as a moderator, you have to take no own position. You have to be aside, and so it's always, if it's someone from the town, from the side, it's always a little bit difficult to keep this distance. So we really recommend to take an external independent moderation for this process, or for the running this workshop. And then we have a second question: is there a certain recommendation concerning the number of persons which should build up this assessment group? And yeah, we have different experience with this, no? I would say.
Yes, we do. In all three pilot workshops, there were considerable differences in the size of the group. I think, Sean, on Ameland, we had a group of, what was it, 5 people, 6 people joining, so a fairly small committee. And on the island of Borkum, we had about twice as many participants, and then in St. Peter-Ording we had more than 20 participants, and in all three cases it worked very well. So the individual groups were composed of representatives of people who had a stake in the topic, who had to contribute, and again, with the 24 people we had in St. Peter-Ording, that worked very well also, because it was structured by a moderation. Probably groups of more than 30 people are more difficult to handle, as it really depends on every single voice. So people should have the feeling to be comfortable speaking up, and also have the chance to speak up. So I think anything between 5 and 25 people is seems to be a good size of the group.
If the group is too big, of course, then it's difficult to run such a discussion. But about 25 years, so like we have it in St. Peter-Ording, that was fine, and had some advantages. I don't know, perhaps you can already ask John directly what is his experience with the number of persons in this assessment team. What was your feeling about it, John? We need your voice.
You're muted.
Yes, I'm muted. Sorry. Could you repeat the question, because there was something going on at the side here?
Okay, I asked, I have a feeling about the number of persons who would build up this assessment group. We had a quite small number at Ameland, but up to 25 people in St. Peter-Ording. So what is your feeling about, from you about this question?
Well, you know, people are nowadays overwhelmed by participation. You have to participate in everything, and we want to hear the opinion of the entrepreneurs, of the local people, of the nature people, and they have to participate in everything. They don't have time anymore to do a lot of those things. So I think it's very wise to have a small group of people, if possible. I mean, if more people want to join, great, but you can do it with 5 as long as they have the right knowledge and background. So, and locally, normally you know which people, if they talk, whether they have enough weight. Yeah, like they know what's happening on the island, or in our case, you know when you have the right people.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah? Normally, and that's important. It's not, so it's not about the numbers, but it's about the what they stand for, what people do, what is their the basis of their knowledge.
Yeah. Göran Zell from Borkum, where we had a test application as well, told us that his feeling was that that was about 12 persons in the group. That he had the feeling that if he would take another group of other 12 people, it would have the same result. It was not really. It depends on the mixture, on the right mixture. So that fits to you, to that what you said, John. It should be the right people. It's not the question of number. Yeah, thank you. Then we had another question about the criteria, whether these criteria really have to be like this as we write them down, or could there be some more, or could we skip some of these criteria? It's important to have exactly these criteria in the assessment. Yeah, it's a little bit difficult to answer, I think.
If you ask the developers of the tool, of course, every single question, every single criteria matters. Well, what certainly can be changed easily is the 3 OUV criteria we compiled for the World Heritage site, for the Wadden Sea World Heritage site. So if you apply the instrument to any other site outside the Wadden Sea, which is a national park, a biosphere reserve, etc., where you have other criteria describing the unique value of that particular site, of course, change them to what is relevant for that particular site. For the other 27 questions concerning the larger planet dimension, referring to climate impact, water, pollution, etc., the social and the economic situation, I recommend to at least try with a set of criteria provided, because there's quite some thought and effort in these criteria. It is already quite condensed version of available instruments, and I think we did quite a good job in covering the most relevant topics. So even if a group thinks that might not be too relevant for that particular site, I would encourage, try it, ask the participants and see what comes out. And Sean, you have a very practical experience with that question, please.
Yeah, well, I was just even today looking at the tool, and I actually told Wolfgang already today also. So I looked at it and I saw one of the questions, and I think this is a very good tool, but it's not bad to look at it from your local perspective, because some things are just a little bit different between like Germany and the Netherlands. Like there's a question about housing, yeah, and the laws in Germany are different from the Netherlands, so you should adapt that question just slightly for the Netherlands, because else you will ask a question which is not that relevant. So in the explanation, don't skip the subject, but to formulate the question sometimes a little bit different. That's okay. In the end, it's more important that you have a good discussion locally about what's happening, and with the outcome that with a good outcome, then that is 100% correctly implemented, in my opinion. I mean, you do it. Always ask yourself, why do you do it? And that's the way I would approach it. So I have no problem if people change a little bit the question if all the participants agree with that.
Yeah, so make it usable for your specific situation. Yeah, well, that sounds like a good idea.
And then still you can compare them with others, most probably.
But I think it's good to have this framework of this catalog in order not to forget anything, any important issue by mistake or by intention, I would say. Then, and so that you should really go along these criteria. You might modify it a little bit for the local situation, but keep the subject, as Sean said. I think that's important. And of course, it's a long questionnaire, 30 questions, and we discussed them. Actually, we discussed them in one workshop with in these pilot destinations, and that was a very dense work. And so that was again the need for strict moderation to come through, and also a commitment of the participants to really to work in the process and not to break out. But they did, and they did very well in all 3 pilot sites, and they came through all these 30 questions in one session. Of course, we have to admit that we did not develop measurements. That's something we learn now, but that should be the next steps. But we really answered the question whether there is an impairment or not on this 30 criteria in this one session in half of the day at the end. Yes, so that covers already the next question.
But maybe Sean, some more impressions of the actual practice of testing the instrument. And we have to say that the pilot workshops really were pilot workshops. So the experience we made in those workshops really provided excellent advice for us to improve the instrument. So the instrument you now find online is not the same that we presented on the workshop in Ameland. It was the same idea, of course, but we really adjusted the questions, we really adjusted the overall table and rearranged the columns. So it is, from the experience made in the practices, the most usable device that we can present to you now. But Sean, looking back at the workshop on Ameland, how did it work applying the instrument as it was back then?
Yes, a good question. How did it work? Quite nicely in the end. I mean, I was also part of the first workshop that we did about whether we should go on with the LAC and the limits of acceptable change. And we were quite skeptical about that because it was doing a lot of research, and like this, you call it a workshop, and I would call it a very good talk, a moderated talk, and we discussed all the subjects together. And what I found most interesting was that if you talk about nature, also the entrepreneurs and also the inhabitants have their opinion about nature, and they talk with each other, and they come to something which they all agree on. So it's not like it's the expert judgments of the nature guy or woman, both of them were there, but it's the expert. It's a joint. They come to a joint answer, and that's really good. The process, that's what I really like, because it's basically just it's a good talk. It takes 2.5, 3 hours almost, I think. Yeah. But in the end, it's just a good talk where we find we come to an agreement on issues, and that's what I like. And then you also notice that entrepreneurs have a feeling about how important nature is for them. So yes, I liked it.
Oh. Another destination will ask you, Sean, for which purpose this instrument could be helpful. What would you answer?
Good question. For which purpose? I would really say, do you think there is a problem? Is there an issue? Mm-hmm. Why you need it? Yeah, because just using it just out of the blue is not really necessary. But if you start getting the feeling that things are a bit under pressure, then definitely just use it. Like right now, a lot of talk is about over tourism already. Okay, well then this tool is very good just to have the discussion about it and make it tangible, because you focus on issues which really show whether there is a problem of over tourism or not, whether nature is declining or not. Yeah, and I believe if you've done it once and you had a very good talk, it will be very easy to repeat it after 2 or 3 years, to do it again and to see what changed. I mean, you could even do it every year, but I don't think that's necessary. But like, if there is if a destination has no issues at all with nature or with tourism, well, I would say don't worry about it. But if you think things are a bit under pressure, then it would be a very good tool to start using, because it's you don't need to do a lot of research. You don't need to do research. You use just the knowledge of the people who were there, and that's the real good value of it, because you take the people seriously who work and live there, and you don't rely on scientific research, which always is questionable by people who practice. They have always a different opinion about scientific research. So this is taking their views serious, which really works.
Right. And at the end, the idea is that the tourism should be of benefit for the people on the site, and so you have to ask the people.
Yes.
Yes, it should, of course, not endanger the values, particularly the values of the Wadden Sea Heritage site, but on the other side, it should fit to the situation, to the people side. Yeah, well, that's important. Actually, when we developed this tool, we also had the idea that it might also be interesting for destinations which have not a problem yet, but as a kind of early warning system to be sure that there is no upcoming conflict ahead. So from my point of view, perhaps it makes also sense for others to give them the trial and see what's coming out. But of course, if you have some rumors already in the site, the motivation to work with the tool and to discuss it will be much bigger.
And you directly show that you're serious about it also.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's also good.
Yeah, is there, from your experience with the application of the questions, the catalogue, is there anything you should pay, or others who work with it should pay special attention to? Is there any kind of maybe obstacle that you should be aware of prior to inviting for such a talk, as you called it, or workshop, or even during the workshop?
No. Yeah, I'm not sure to get it right, the question, but I think the important thing is
special attention, where you really have to
be aware of.
Yeah, I think you really have one thing you really have to be aware of is selecting the right people. That's the most important part. If you do that wrong, it won't work. Yeah, so make sure you have people who have some authority, not formal authority, but like mental authority. Yeah. So if they say something, you think, okay, yes, that stands for something. And the other thing is, which I'm a bit not skeptical about, but worried about, is, of course, we ask about the OUV and we ask about the Wadden Sea, which is clear because we are a Wadden Sea, we are a World Heritage. In my experience, the Wadden Sea World Heritage is still a bit far away from the local people. Yeah, they travel over it every day, but if you're on an island like Ameland or Borkum, tourism is big. Whether there is a Wadden Sea or not, I mean, tourism is big already. So they're not specifically for tourism concerned about the Wadden Sea. Well, from our point of view, the Wadden Sea is important. So that's something with also a small issue, which I think, I think it's good because it actually also creates awareness at the same time for people to, hey, wait a moment, but you're also responsible for the Wadden Sea, for the protection of the OUV. So really it's an eye opener, and it's quite interesting to start with that as well. But it might also be a bit of a challenge if you ask questions which are too far from the, how do you call it, in Dutch we say belevingswereld, the reality around people, how they live. So that's a bit of a challenge, I think. Because if you lose them in the beginning, it's more difficult to get them back. So the order of questions is something to think about also.
Yeah, we hear a lot of discussion on difficult ways of giving the people on the side the opportunity to influence tourism development. So participation processes are discussed in many sides. So do you think this is this instrument could be a part of or replacing a participation process on tourism development, or where would you put it in this discussion?
Yeah, I know it can't replace it, but it can be very helpful to have a low threshold participation, because not too many people, and the thing you should do, like I like what Anja said about translating the results into a PowerPoint, publish the results. Yeah, so share it with the people. That way, you show that there was participation. You show what you did with it. That can be very helpful, I think. Yeah, but and you will identify issues which you have to work on, and then of course, like if you identify that you have a problem with housing, then the next step is how you're going to solve it, and then you need participation again on that subject.
Yeah,
that's how it works. But try to keep participation as effective as possible. So don't waste too much time especially for entrepreneurs. Yeah, that's really a thing.
Okay, yeah, I think it's good to know where to put it and which place in the discussion, in the discussion process this tool might be helpful. And of course, at the end, it is not a solution. This radar is an instrument, a tool, which is supposed to help us to structure and the discussion, and to, of course, make give some info, or bring people together and make them to think about dense and concentrated on these different areas which are relevant for sustainable development.
Yeah. Maybe even something I'm not 100% sure about, but when we did a workshop on Ameland, we had a good discussion about things. And a year later, I managed to start the process of developing new tourism policy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not sure whether the workshop influenced this or not, but it's good at least we did it. And a lot of issues which were in the radar were also addressed in the policy. Okay,
so that leads us to this question: what will you work with this radar in future anymore, or will you do it again, or? Yeah.
I would love to do it again on Ameland, but also even in some other areas. Really like to use it again. One of the interesting things was, I mean, that was a pity, because it was a pilot, what we did on Ameland, and the participants really asked, when is the report coming? Mm-hmm. So I sent them this report, but that's not the report they're looking for. They wanted to report on the situation on Ameland.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how is it? So they were really interested in that. So that means, yes, if you do it again, it would be very good. And you could even make it as, if you have a new tourism policy, as part of your monitoring efforts. Yeah. Like when you do a review of before you start developing a new policy, do this one as well. That will help.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, I would advocate the use of it in a Dutch way.
Okay.
Well, thank you for your voice from the praxis and your contribution to this.
You're
Do
welcome.
we have any more questions? Let's have a quick look in the Q&A section.
No, that's more or less. There was one question from the last session. We skipped it. It was the questions how we did the moderation in detail. So that's John is knowing this. Of course, he was with us at that time. But we had been the two-person, and I think that's important for running such a workshop. One was doing the leading the talk, the talking, leading the discussion, and the second one, it was Anja in this case. She was taking notes of what we figured out, and she just wrote it in the, as John said, she just wrote it in the table we showed you, and on the screen. So we put it with the projector on the screen, and the people could see what we are typing down, and what is the result of our discussion, what is the assessment, so they could follow the process and see which results are coming out of the discussion. And so I think this is was a good way to do it, to visualize and discuss together, and just also to avoid that you take one issue again and again. You say, yeah, that's done, and we can take the next one. So that's for this one. Yes, and coming to this idea, applying the approach in other destinations. Actually, we really thought about whether this could be a kind of monitoring instrument for the whole region, for the entire region. And of course, there is some. You have to be aware that you not really can compare the results of one site directly with another destination, because you have different people doing the work. Have they modify the criteria a little bit? They have a other procedure in running the instrument. So that's something we're a little tricky about to directly compare it with each other. But if a number of destinations in the Wadden Sea region do this process regularly and talk about in the network with each other, and then it could be useful for experience exchange from first hand. And on the other hand, you can, if you put them next to the others, then you can see in how much places you have a positive development from one application to the other, and in which situations it might be developing in the wrong direction. And if there you have, for example, 8 destinations working with these instruments and all have a positive development, of course, then it's a good signal for the destinations or the way around that situation. So it might be possible to have a kind of monitoring for the region as well, but with some restrictions, as I told you. Yes. So I think we have no more questions now. John, do you have any recommendations or remarks from your side you would like to share with the audience at the end?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just what I like to share is don't be afraid of this tool. It's a quite simple tool. Don't be afraid of the moderation. It's not that difficult to moderate it. So I think it is relatively easy to use as long as you make sure you get the right people on board, and then you can do it anywhere without too much trouble. And it is valuable. And what I also think it also shows towards to local people, to the nature organization. It shows you take the issue seriously, and the entrepreneurs also open their eyes for other aspects. So it's really something which the report is less important than the process, maybe even, but it's really good. So for that, that's my final last words, famous last words.
I think that's a perfect closing words, John.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And for the audience, if anyone has further questions on this instrument and on the process, of course, you are invited to approach us, either Anja or me, and we will be happy to answer your questions and have you when you would like to apply this instrument. Okay, so I think we come to the end.
Thank you very much for being with us today. You'll find, as I said, the toolboxes in English and also in German languages online, and there might also be a Dutch version in preparation. We were not quite sure about the status quo of that, but if you have in your national language interest in translating this, please contact me and we'll find a solution for that.
The Dutch version will come.
It's fine. Okay. Yeah, and particular thanks very much to you, Sean, for participating, for being with us and discussing with us. So I think this was very valuable also for the audience to hear from practice how it really works, and what is your experience. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a great long weekend in Germany, and the usual weekend in the rest of the world.
we have one day off Monday. So, have a nice weekend and
great.
see you.
And see you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.